I wasn't conscious, no. I was in a coma. My body literally shut down because it knew I couldn't take that pain.
Wow.
And
well, yes, praise be for that registrar.
They put this button in my hand and they said, here's a morphine drip. Just click it whenever you need morphine. I was pressing it the whole time thinking, dear God, I can't believe this. And I spent 2 years of my life in bed addicted to opioids and alcohol. They just give you more and more opioids. I was literally downing opioids with a bottle of wine at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Shit.
2 years of...
It'd be like a haze, wouldn't it?
I went back to my second sexual assault when I was 15 years old.
An accumulation to get you to the journey to become the version of you that's now. A lot of people look at it and go, well, that's complete nonsense.
Trish died first. My mum died not long after that. Dear friend of mine, Sarah, died of cancer. My best friend, Holly, died of cancer/chemo. I couldn't deal with anything that was going on in my life, so
In today's episode in the studio, I am joined by a woman whose remarkable story of being extremely unwell to becoming revitalized and completely energetic is one that I suggest you hang with us and hear, because I'm joined by none other than Philly L.J. She is the host of her own podcast, actually, which, again, go and listen because it is fabulous. It's called The Wellness Way Podcast. She also is the founder of a festival, which, keep your eye on this one because it was the first one this year, but there's going to be many, many more. And that is the Wellness Way Festival. She is a mum to 2 incredible young women. She's an advisor, protagonist. Is that fair to say? Would you say, Philly? I don't know. We'll ask you in a second. Change agent and a truth seeker is definitely what she is. It gives me enormous pleasure to welcome Philly J. Lay to So What's Your Story?
It is lovely to be here, Ian. Thank you so much.
We've been waiting for this moment, right? And again, I know I've said this before, we don't know where this is going to go. Philly can sometimes go, she can go deep into some areas that, some people find a little bit uncomfortable to hear. It's her story. It's my show. I say go and talk about whatever you want to talk about. So we will cover as much of Philly's story as we can, but we've got a lot of ground to cover as well. So let's go there first, Philly, because it's well publicized on your own show, on your own socials, but some people who are just new to So What's Your Story or don't know your story, do you mind if we go there and talk about,
Absolutely.
Because you were very unwell, weren't you?
Yeah.
So tell us how that came about and how unwell you were, and when there was the light bulb moment of, I've had enough of this shit, I'm going to sort this out.
Okay, so back in 2014, I had a spinal fusion. Now, obviously, what I know now, there are a lot of other options to having a spinal fusion, but I couldn't walk and I was wetting myself and I was in a bad way. And when you start wetting yourself on a regular basis, they kind of like, okay, let's call the ambulance.
Right.
So I was taken to hospital. I had a spinal fusion and they missed my spine with the anaesthetic and I nearly died.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So what they are meant to do is they're meant to put the anaesthetic into your spine, an epidural, and then they knock you out. And so when they bring you round from the surgery, you've got all the pain relief because, it's a 6-7 hour operation. They, cut my back open. My disc, the last disc in my back had completely shattered.
Wow.
So they had to pick all the bone out. They had to cut off all the nerves. Then they had to put a metal cage in. Then they had to try and reattach the nerves.
Wow.
Reattach it to the bone.
It's a major operation.
Yeah. So they brought me round from the operation. I had no pain relief in my spine, and I can still hear that scream. I will never forget that scream that came out of my life as long as I live. But the body is remarkable. So my body shut down and it just went away from the world because I could hear the panic in the room as they heard me screaming because they couldn't give me any more medication.
Oh God.
Because they had given me the maximum that my body could take. It was just in the wrong place. So it was like, shit, we can't give her anything. What do we do? But my body did it for them. And I just went away from the world, shut down. I was taken to a room. When I came round, there was a mattress on the floor. And I thought, how very strange. And I found out, and my children were by my bed. And I found out quite a few years later, actually, 4 or 5 years later, that my now ex-husband, Danny, had obviously tried to come in and bring the children in the day of the op, because he'd been told that they could come in that evening and have tea with me. But then they were stopped. And I discovered that my life wasn't saved that day by a surgeon. It was saved by the registrar of the hospital. And she had slept on the floor or laid by my side for 24 hours. And she just kept saying, come on, where's your happy place? Find your happy place. Let's go to your happy place.
Oh, my goodness me.
And I couldn't find my happy place until my children came in. And the minute I heard their voices, I was just like, okay, I can come round now.
So do you think you were in a coma-like state, or was it just sort of the pain was so excruciating that, because you say you went to this other place, for clarity purpose, were you conscious or not conscious?
I wasn't conscious. No, I was
Wow.
in a coma. My body literally shut down because it knew I couldn't take that pain.
Oh my God! Wow.
And
Well, yes, praise be for that registrar, hey?
but and when I did come round with the children, they put this this button in my hand, and they said, here's a morphine drip, just click it whenever you need morphine. And I was just literally pressing it the whole time, just thinking, dear God, I can't believe this. And just completely spaced out on morphine until I went home. But I went home on a ton of opioids.
Right.
And I spent 2 years of my life in bed, addicted to opioids and alcohol. And this story is quite well known now, that they don't think anything of it. They just give you more and more opioids. And there's, I remember a friend of mine again, years after it happened, said, I just remember picking up your girls to take them to school. And we came up to your bedroom, and I'd moved into my own bedroom because I couldn't have anybody near me. My children or Danny, if they sat near the bed, I could feel if their toe touched the bed, and I'd scream, don't stop touching the bed. And they go, I didn't touch the bed. And we go, you did. But the pain was excruciating.
Goodness me.
But this friend of mine who picked the children up, she brought them up to say goodbye, to go off to school. And I was literally downing opioids with a bottle of wine at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Shit.
And I don't really have many recollections.
No, I wouldn't have thought you did.
2 years of my life.
No, it'd be like a haze, wouldn't it?
It was,
You'd be drifting in and out of conscious probably as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and I was just always off my face, on alcohol and opioids. And,
wow, shit.
And I was suffering from a lot of grief over that period of time as well. So this happened just after my sister died. The spinal fusion needed to be done.
Sorry to hear
and,
that.
One of the things that I've learned consequently is that all dis-ease in the body is dis-ease. And so the last disc of the spine is where you feel unsupported or unsupporting. And my sister died of motor neurons disease, and I feel I didn't support her, and I certainly didn't feel that I had any support, from either Danny or, my children were too young. They didn't know.
Of course. Yeah.
It's just like, oh, Auntie Trish is ill. It's kind of, but Trish died first. My mum was seriously ill and died not long after that. A dear friend of mine, Sarah, died of cancer, and my best friend and soulmate, Polly, died of cancer/chemo. And I had this, I couldn't deal with anything that was going on in my life. So I didn't want to give up the opioids and the alcohol. I didn't want to be here.
So do you think it was acting as like, although it was actually there for the pain of the operation that had happened and, you know, the subsequent pain from that, do you think it was also helping you to just mask out what you needed to feel? The loss of your sister, the loss of your friends, the perhaps a little bit of guilt somewhere. You know, do you think that you were
absolutely? I was trying to mask it out, and my marriage was on the rocks, and I just. So
rather than face the problem, you just fucking wiped it out.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, hasta la vista, baby. So I spent 2 years like that, but it was an interesting 2 years because I obviously had post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, obviously.
And Danny had wanted me to go and see a solicitor, but I couldn't. There was nothing in me that could relive that operation and talk about it. And I remember when Dan took me back to the hospital to see the surgeon 6 weeks later for the checkup. And when I walked in, he went, "Oh my God, it's you with the scream." And I thought, what a weird thing to say. And he went, "I'll never forget that scream." I said, "Nor will I." I said, "Well, that was a disaster of an operation, wasn't it?" And he said, No, the operation was highly successful. It was the anaesthetic. It was nothing to do with me, which is true. But the fact that they just cover their own back is quite extraordinary.
It's that classic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
You know.
But I spent that 2 years of my life in bed. You know, post-traumatic stress disorder, chronic fatigue, chronic brain fog, frozen shoulder,
right,
autoimmune diseases. I kind of bloated from a size 8, which I'd been most of my life, to a size 16.
God.
So I felt kind of really, you know,
So
because I didn't move,
no,
you know.
Your self-esteem's low.
Oh, I hated everything about myself. I couldn't look in the mirror. I couldn't.
And for those of you who are just, you know, listening on audio, take a look at Philly online, because she is...
Because I'm shit hot now.
Well, she's very vibrant. She's very energetic. You know, you're bouncy, because I've seen you, you know, bouncing around. Even today, you sort of skipped in here almost, even though it's pissing it down the rain,
like a drowned rat.
You know, but you've got an energy about you. You look good. You're not a size 16 anymore. You're back to your optimum. Everything's optimum. So it's hot. It's great to hear. Well, no, it's not great. It's hard to hear what's happened, but it's great to see you as you are today. And this is the transformation, isn't it?
It is.
And I'm keen to know that whilst there was this, you know, horrific time in your life, was there an epiphany? Was there a moment that you said, that is enough? I'm going to stop this shit and I'm going to turn this around?
There was. And it was, I noticed a great big lump in my throat.
Oh my God, really?
And I hadn't really noticed it because I didn't really open my eyes very much. They were quite puffy and I just couldn't be asked to open my eyes. But one day I actually had to go out and a friend had come over to dress me and wash my hair because I had a frozen shoulder and I couldn't do it. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, God, what's that blooming great big lump? And so I kind of thought, I need to go and see a doctor now. So I went to see my GP. And he hadn't seen me for 2 years. So he kind of thought that the spinal fusion had been a great success and I hadn't needed to go back. And, you know, I was doing hunky-dory. And he looked at me and just said, oh my God, what's happened? And I started crying and I started telling him everything that had gone on. And he said, okay, we need to get you in. We need to be doing tests immediately. First thing we've got to do is biopsy that lump in your throat. But we need to get you in, get the frozen shoulder seen, the brain fog, the fatigue. So I was booked in to see 4 consultants very quickly. He moved heaven and earth for me. And I kept sitting there with these consultants and I kept saying, is it connected? Is it to do with the spinal fusion? Is it connected in the body? None of them wanted to talk about the spinal fusion because they don't like to admit when Western medicine has been a complete and utter fuck up. So they were going, no, I just deal with tumours and thyroids. I just deal with frozen shoulders. Where I'm going to wire your brain up. And I'm sitting there listening to all these consultants, and the frozen shoulder guy, he said, let me put an injection in your arm. And he just stabbed me with this steroid injection before I could even blink. I hadn't even said yes, but I was in a little T-shirt. And he said, I'm just going to give you a quick injection. And it was just like, and again, that was another massive scream that came out of my mouth. And it was unbelievably painful. And he went, don't be so stupid, that didn't hurt. I went, dear God, it did. And I'm going, what are these? They were all men, I saw. What are these men doing? I had the biopsies done. The first one didn't read, so I had to go back for a second one. All of it is terrifying. They make you, there's this whole fear over cancer.
No, there is.
It was a tumour, but it was benign. But they said, we've got to take it out because it's already eaten half of your thyroid, but we'll try and leave the other half. So I had the tumour out. And then I just thought, I'm giving up Western medicine. And I just said, that's it. He said, you're going to have to be on thyroxine for the rest of your life. And I went, no, I don't actually. And he said, well, you do, because otherwise you're not going to get out of bed. I went, watch me. And I had no idea what to do, but I just knew, from watching my mum really, kind of when they started putting her on medication, and very quickly she was up to 17 medications a day. And I kept taking her to her doctor and going, can we cut this back a bit? And they're going, no, this is for this and this is for this. And I'm going, but why she got that? And he's going, well, it can be a side effect of this drug. And I'm going, so this is side effects. You're giving her drugs for side effects.
Accumulating the problem with more drugs, and then obviously getting the reason to have another drug because that's wow.
So I just knew that I was not starting on that route, because the minute, drugs to me are sticking plasters. You don't get to the root cause. They're sticking plasters for a symptom. They all have side effects. And so, I spoke to doctor friends that we had, and they said, well, out of all the drugs, thyroxine is most probably the safest. I just thought, no, I'm not having this. So I gave up Western medicine.
Wow.
And I started this journey to heal myself naturally. And I've done bloody well.
No, you have. You have. And how do you start that journey? Because look, there's a lot of, you know as well as I do, Philly, the power of social media is very, very powerful in the right hands. But there's a lot of quackery as well, isn't there? There's a lot of, stuff that's put out there that is just a pack of lies, and it's just to make a quick buck. Yeah. So how did you navigate this? Because you've drawn a line in the sand. You said no more, modern medicine, so to speak, or no more conventional medicine, and you turned yourself towards natural healing. How do you embark on that journey?
Well, I started with diet and nutrition.
Did you?
Because it was something I knew a little bit about. My dad was a grower with a small piece of land that he bought when he came back from World War II. Mm-hmm. He planted it up with strawberries, and then that following summer, they didn't have any money to have help harvesting. And apparently him and Mum used to just weep looking at all the fruit rotting on the plants. So my mum painted a sign and put it up on the main road. It simply said, pick your own. And that's how Pick Your Own Strawberries started in the UK. So I grew up on the land. Wow. And, I was the last of 6 children. We were all used as a workforce. So I remember, being very young, like 6, 7 years old. And in January, we'd be sent into the polytunnels to plant up the lettuce, and we'd have little mittens on so our fingers could go into the soil.
Yeah.
And Mum would strap a hot water bottle on us front and back.
Really? And
we were just sent out there for the day. I think that would now be illegal, and I would have been taken into care. I remember that hot summer of 76, and I was 11 or 12. We had to I had to harvest the red and green peppers in the morning. And it was so hot that summer that Mum would wake us at 5 o'clock and quickly go out there and get them in, before sunrise. And then, you can have the rest of the day off because it's too hot to work. It was kind of, I'm sure, if it was still legal to put children up sweeping chimneys, my mum would have done that too.
It didn't do any harm, did it?
I loved it.
It's funny, isn't it? Because people listen to this and go, oh, how barbaric. But you're out there with your siblings.
Yeah.
You're in fresh air.
Yeah.
If you're picking strawberries, you're probably having one every now and then.
Yep. I ended up in hospital because of that, because I ate too many of them and I had an acid. So you initially turned to your diet then. So diet and nutrition.
You've seen the power of that, and to this day you're very strong on educational of food and what we consume, basically. Yeah.
I knew a bit about food. There was a disease in the 1950s in strawberry plants called red core, and it virtually wiped out the strawberry species in the UK.
Wow.
And my dad discovered a remedy for it, not a cure, a remedy.
Wow.
Which he took to ICI. And they said, that's amazing, Mr. Lay. And they said, we're just going to give you a very small advance because we don't have much money, but we're going to give you a really high royalty. And they buried it. And the reason they buried it was Epsom salts and seaweed, neither of which you can patent. Now, going forward quite a few years, there was a clothes chain that decided to go into the food chain. And they became a very big player in the food industry. And my brother had taken over the land and he wasn't big enough to supply them on his own. So he put a consortium together.
Nice.
Of young lads in our village. So my dad's generation all retired. They handed over to their sons and they all started this consortium. And Dave was growing lettuce for this chain. And I'd watch him walking up and down the fields, spraying the lettuce. Now, this chain took a class A1 lettuce from 4 ounces to 12 ounces within a matter of weeks. Do you know how many chemicals that takes? And so Dave would go up and down the field spraying, and he'd wear a mask because he knew that these chemicals were killing all the bugs. It's bizarre. We're the only species that spray our food with a poison to kill other species, and then we eat it ourselves. It's just like,
doesn't make sense, does it?
What the fuck? And you go into a supermarket and all the organic stuff is lined up there, and you have to prove that you haven't got, nearly 400 chemicals in those produce. And yet, it should be the carrots up there going, chemical carrots. And you can name those 400 chemicals that, I think it's 385 chemicals that they have to test for with the Soil Association. But anyway, Dave used to spray and I used to watch him in his mask, but he didn't have a T-shirt on. And so all of this chemical mixture that he was spraying would go straight onto his skin. Now, I didn't know then that the skin was the biggest organ of the body. So I kind of thought, he'll be all right. I knew it wasn't good what he was spraying, and it smelled, we could smell it in the house and it was horrible. But within 2 years, not only was my brother dead, but so were all the other young men in our village. A whole generation of growers got wiped out all through cancer. And I had very much believed that at the time, and I still do, that they were all poisoned by these chemicals.
Oh my God.
So I knew quite a lot about food. I also trained as a classical dancer. So, when I was little and I went off to ballet school, so I knew quite a bit. And I thought, right, that's where I have to start. And I can fix all of this through diet and nutrition. I wasn't really on social media then. I was on Facebook, but I didn't really use it that much. But because I couldn't really... my eyes hurt the whole time and I fell asleep and I'm just like, oh, fuck it. But I discovered these things called docuseries. Now, they're really hard to find now on the internet. But I kind of thought, okay, there was one that I listened to called The Truth About Cancer. And because, Polly and Sarah had cancer, this is before I discovered my tumour. I thought, I'm going to listen to this. And I discovered, all of these wonderful people like Dr. Makola Sayajai, phenomenal people, Dr. Buttar. So I'm learning all of this stuff. And that was the first rabbit hole I went down. And until that point, I had believed that doctors had your best interest at heart. And I'm not saying that they're bad people. The majority of doctors are good people that want to help people. It's just they go away to a medical school and they are indoctrinated. And they're taught about the body, and then they're taught about this is the symptom, this is the drug. So in my mind, when I started learning this, it was just like, okay, they're drug pushers. They have huge incentives to push these drugs. We know that, every time a doctor recommends chemotherapy for a patient, there's the last time I checked, I don't know what it is now, because this is a few years ago, there's a £6,000 payout to that doctor's surgery. We know for the COVID injections, there was £15 an injection. We know for statins. I mean, I think everybody must have watched Dope Stick by now or heard about it, and know the incentives that doctors are given to push these drugs. The opioid crisis, again, they're given huge incentives. This is a money-making machine. And once you go down that rabbit hole and you start learning all of this, you can't unlearn it. It's just like, oh my God, I'm being poisoned. Yeah.
Was the one healing technique, that you felt, you talk about nutrition, but then you started to look at, other additives into what you were taking. Yeah. Was there one healing technique or practice that you think had the greatest impact in your recovery? Because your recovery is a constant journey, right or wrong, yeah?
It's always a journey. I'm still on that journey. Yeah. I'm still learning.
But reflecting back, because it's a number of years ago now, isn't it? Since that spinal,
Yeah.
So is there one thing that you would say?
There is. And I know what it is, and I will get to it, but it's a process, you see, this healing journey. So from diet and nutrition, going organic, giving up all GMO foods, all chemical foods, all sugar, Are
you a vegetarian?
I was a vegetarian for many years. I turned vegetarian when I was 16, when I moved to London on my own.
Okay.
It was not really to do with the meat or the planet. The planet needs these animals hugely, although a lot of the farming practices are diabolical.
Yeah.
But, farmed well, we need, all the cow shit and the chicken shit. We need it in the soil.
Yeah.
It's vitally important. But I turned vegetarian because when I was about 6-7 years old, my mum, I had a pet pig called Snowy. And my mum caught Snowy on the sofa watching Blue Peter. I'm just going to tap as I talk about this. And she said to me, if I ever catch Snowy on the sofa again, Snowy's going to the slaughterhouse.
Oh, no. Poor Snowy.
I thought she was joking.
Snowy's, oh, bless Snowy.
3 months later, roast Snowy. Nobody ate roast Snowy, not even the dog.
Oh, dear.
Not my mum. We all sat there in tears. And roast Snowy went off to a children's home in a nearby town. But I obviously was very much put off meat by that. So I did turn vegetarian. Not vegan. I've always believed it's important to have animal products in your diet.
Yeah.
But on my healing journey through diet and nutrition, one of the things I also discovered that I had was leaky gut. And leaky gut, because the gut lining is only one cell deep. And then, if it's, when you think how many opioids I was taking, it just, the mesh came apart.
Yeah.
Every time you take a painkiller, an opioid, an antibiotic, it is literally a nuclear bomb in your gut.
Yeah.
And so this wall opens up and then all the shit goes through to your bloodstream and you feel terrible. And so I put bone broth back into my diet.
Wow.
Because I knew I needed the collagen. I now eat meat twice a year. So Christmas Day, I have a slice of turkey with my girls. Easter Sunday, I have a slice of chicken. And, that's kind of, if I wanted it more, I'd have it. I can't eat red meat, although because the government don't want us to eat cows, I'm really trying to get my head around eating it, because if they tell me not to do something, I'm just like, fuck you. But I can't get there yet. But I then moved on, learning an awful lot about vitamins and minerals and put masses of those into my diet. And then I learned about adaptogens, which I love, rhodiola, ashwagandha, all of these wonderful plants that are there to make your body adapt to its ultimate being. So, something like rhodiola, there's a wonderful book called The Rhodiola Revolution. And the Russians have used it for many years for all their elite. So their elite athletes, scientists, everybody's put on rhodiola.
Wow. And what's its big thing? Does it give you sharpness of thought or?
Yes, it focuses the brain. Very, makes your body stronger. So now I don't know if man ever went to the moon, but if they have gone into space, as they say they have, when you see the Russians and the Western astronauts come back, the Western astronauts have actually carried out on a stretcher, but let's remember this is all theatre, but they're carried out on a stretcher, and the Russian astronauts just kind of walk off a capsule because they're all on rhodiola.
Right.
So, no matter how fast they're spinning the body and trying to knock these people out so they look shit when they come back, if you're on rhodiola, you're going to be fine. So it's kind of been a Russian trick. So I got very much into the adaptogens. And then something happened in my life that took me on a very different healing modality. So my marriage was under a lot of pressure now. My husband, Danny, couldn't understand what I was doing.
Right.
It wasn't pleasant to live around me. So he'd come in with his shoes on and I'd be screaming again, get them off, there might be glyphosate from, because the council spray all the pavements and everything outside for glyphosate. He'd wear aftershave and, perfume after shave is the new smoke. And he'd buy junk food and I'd cook a meal and I'd spend kind of 6 hours cooking a really beautiful vegetarian curry and make sure that I have my 30 a day in there, because it's 30 plants, herbs, spices, lentils, nuts, whatever. So I get the whole shebang in there, spend hours making it and the bone broth. And he'd just look at it and go, well, that's a side dish. Where's the main meal? And he'd push it into the centre of the table and pop in the car and go to Tesco's and buy a chemically induced steak. So it wasn't great.
Yeah. So there was a parting of
there was a parting of the ways, and I didn't know how to leave my marriage because it was toxic, and I knew that the toxicity of it was affecting myself and the children and the dogs. The minute he walked through the door, I go hi. And then within minutes he'd be shouting, and the dogs would just hide under the furniture, and I can't live like this. So it was actually our 22nd wedding anniversary. I woke up and I was going to post a picture of our wedding anniversary and go happy anniversary. And I went to write it and I couldn't write happy anniversary. There was nothing in me that could write that. And so I wrote, it's with great sadness that after 22 years, Danny and I have decided to separate. We had a wonderful wedding, 2 beautiful children, but our lives have gone in very different directions. Your support and love would be greatly received. And I posted it. Now, there was a problem, and I'm not proud of this in any shape or form, but sometimes you have to do something radical because you you just can't keep going.
I agree, but do you think putting it out on social media is the way to do that?
Most probably not, but if you imagine what state I was in to do that, because the problem was I hadn't told him or my children, and they both found out on Facebook. They all found out on Facebook.
Yeah,
so, I mean, it's not good.
No.
It's not good. But you have to look at how desperate I was. I mean, I was so unhappy. And still this was the period of time, I'm beginning to heal myself, but, there's still, Polly hasn't quite died yet. And I'm trying to, look for solutions for Polly. My mum had just passed. I was in a completely desperate state. And I knew that I had to do something. And I said, we have to get divorced. And he said, yeah, but we're not doing it till the children leave home. And I just couldn't wait another 2 years. It was another 2 years, but I couldn't do it. But I had a message that day from a woman that I hadn't seen since our wedding 22 years earlier. And she said, I know our friendship was a long time ago, and it was quite short, but I remember you as being such fun and very happy times. And I'd like to invite you on a course that I'm putting on in September. Give me your email and I'll send you the link. So I did. I looked at the link and then I looked at the price and I kind of thought, oh no, maybe I won't do it. And then I had a message from her going, oh, by the way, it's a gift. And when the universe gives you a gift, you take it. I'm like, okay. And it was something called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, otherwise known as tapping. Do you know tapping?
Yes.
Yep. And I say over and over again, it looks as mad as shit, but it works on everything. And it really, really does. And that was, I've had quite a few, what I call my fuck me moments when you discover something, you go, fuck me. Why didn't I know this? But EFT was a big one of those. That was the one. And I went along to this course and I sat there and everybody's sitting there tapping. And I'm like, what is this? Oh my God, they are all completely insane. And I thought, I can't walk out because it's a gift. So I just won't come in tomorrow. I'll just kind of phone in sick or say one of my children's sick. I didn't know by putting words out to the universe, you shouldn't ever do that. But, that's kind of was my mentality still then. And I wasn't, I was kind of tapping a bit but I was just like, this is insanity that anybody thinks that you can heal yourself by tapping. And then it was 11 o'clock because we just had our morning break for a drink and we come in and we started another session. And for the second time in my life, I let out a scream that I don't know where it came from in my body. And I'm like, oh my God. And the pain, I felt like somebody was stabbing me in my hip with a knife. And then I thought I was having a heart attack and I fell onto the floor and I was convinced I was having a heart attack and I'm screaming at everybody kind of, get me an ambulance, get me a fucking ambulance. And nobody batted an eyelid and nobody called an ambulance. And I'm screaming going, what the fuck is wrong with you? I need an ambulance. And Penny just picked me up very calmly and put me on a chair and started tapping on me, and everybody else continued to sit in this circle and tap on themselves. And I couldn't believe what they were doing. I was so angry. I was in so much pain. And then Penny kept saying to me, where can you feel this pain in your body? And I go, I need the ambulance. She's going, no, just focus. Where can you feel the pain? And when she took me into that place in the body and you scan your body, and you find the pain and you give it an intensity from 0 to 10, you give it a colour, you give it a form. And, as I'm tapping, well, she's tapping on me because I couldn't tap. And I could feel and see this pain going around my body. And this went on until the lunch break, 1 o'clock. And then it finished. So it was 2 hours of tapping. Penny just flicked the screen. And the next thing that we were meant to be covering after lunch was something called Chasing the Pain. And she just flicked the screen and said, and that was a perfect example of chasing the pain. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? I was taken out of the room with one of her practitioner supporters. I was exhausted. I was very cold. So I was given a bed to lay down. Somebody stayed with me and continued to tap on me for most of the afternoon. But we had just released these unimaginable traumas because all the stuff that I had done to heal myself, all the diet and nutrition and the vitamins and the adaptogens, all of it means nothing until you get to the trauma of what happened. And so we had to start working through the trauma. That was the most remarkable discovery that I ever made. I went on to train to be an EFT practitioner and a matrix reimprint practitioner. So with matrix, you use EFT. So you have to keep yourself safe. You've got to protect yourself. And so you take your echo, which is an energetic hologram. You take your echo. And I know this sounds mad. If anybody had said to me 10 years ago, I'd be having these conversations, I would have you're absolutely fucking barking. But you take your echo out to the matrix. And the most important thing you have to do is keep that echo safe. So you tap until you get back to a lower SUD. So you might be like a 2 or a 3 or a 4. And then you go back and you'll see yourself as a 2 or a 3 or a 4-year-old child. And then you revisit the trauma. Now, you can't rewrite those traumas, but you can re-imprint them.
Wow.
And you can forgive people. And forgiveness is the greatest modality that we have for healing. And so we use a technique, with clients and, with when I'm, having work done on me, I bring my angel wings in. I might put a perspex or a glass screen up between myself and a perpetrator. I've had 3 sexual attacks in my life that I needed forgiveness, to deal with.
Yep.
So I'll put up a glass screen, or I'll make them very small so that just you can't hurt me because you're an inch big, you motherfucker. And you just leave them there. Or you could put them in a bubble and just go, I'm not letting you out that bubble, mate. We're just going to talk about what you did to me.
Wow.
And you basically re-imprint it till you can get back to forgiveness.
Is it a similar thing to, is it EDM or EMDR? I should know. I've had specialists on this show. I always get the acronym mixed up. So it's eye movement, distraction.
Yes.
You're revisiting the pain, and then you're basically scrambling the experience.
Yeah, and we use that.
Right.
And all the eye movements and the counting back from 5 to 1, seeing 5 objects in a room, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell.
Yeah.
All the eye movements. We use that when people go into what we call abreaction, so adverse reactions.
Wow.
Because we have to keep everybody safe and bring them back to the here and now. And it's one of my, one of the things that, because Danny had felt for a long time after the fusion that I should go into therapy.
Right. And
I didn't want to talk about it. I mean, because what's talking about it going to do? It's not going to change anything. And, one of the things that, and I know therapy works for some people, but I know a lot of people that will go to therapy and, they sit there and they'd be talking about something, and then 30 minutes in, something would kick off. They'd be in floods of tears. They'd be revisiting a trauma. And then the consultant would go, well, that's your time up now. So I'll see you next week. And then they send them out into the real world, engulfed in trauma with no resolution. And that's a dangerous place to leave people. And, depression is deep resting. That's what it is, when your body needs to rest because it's not in a safe place. And talking, to my mind, doesn't put it in a safe place. Whereas EFT Matrix, you revisit those traumas, and you do it really quite quickly, and then you re-imprint them, and then you can come back safe into the here and now.
They've not gone.
They haven't gone.
They're always going to be there. It's just a more comfortable place to either, so it is a similar thing, because obviously, one technique is a lot of techniques have got this overlap. It allows you to visit the trauma and then kind of not come to terms with it, but accept maybe or
it's not. So Carl Dawson, who created Matrix Reimprint, he says there must be no violence in the Matrix,
right?
But I disagree with him. I went back to my second sexual assault when I was 15 years old, and I basically got a knife and I stabbed that bastard up the arse with it. I kind of thought, and I know
in your imagination,
in my Matrix,
and I
went, that's what it feels like, mate.
Oh dear.
So I needed to do that, and then I felt really wonderful. And funnily enough, I had gone back to my hometown where I was born a few weeks later to see my sister, and I was walking around the town and I saw him.
Wow.
And he had a stroke, and he was on walking sticks, and then I had a slight panic and kind of thought, "Oh God, did I do that?" But quite honestly, I don't care. So it's but you're not meant to take violence out of the Matrix.
No. So you had an accumulation to get you to the journey to become the version of you that's now. There's a combination of diet. There was a combination of go down some rabbit holes. Then there was this, matrix reforming thing. So it's interesting because, again, a lot of people do look at these types of things and go, well, that's complete nonsense and woo-woo, But there's an accumulation of evidence. At your wellness festival, for example, there was
we had tappers galore there, didn't we?
Yeah,
we had a tapping tent.
There was a tapping tent. There was, there was a stage full of different people putting different perspectives on things, whether it be detoxification, whether it be nutrition, whether it be talking about, different treatments for cancers that are not widely spoken about, but are very, very effective. How can one understand the whole landscape, Philly? And I know you talk about it's a journey. You've just got to start on the journey, and you'll accumulate the information. You've got a great podcast. You have some great guests. It's a good source of finding out a lot of the information. You're friends with the lady who
Barbara O'Neill.
Barbara O'Neill. And what a phenomenal woman she is.
Woman.
It's just incredible that she'll identify somebody's toxicity in their body and can give a remedy or a solution rather quickly that does not involve, medication. Modern medication.
For which she has been, penalised very heavily. She's not allowed to...
she was taken as hostage at one point, wasn't she? Or effectively, she wrote a book about it.
Well, her husband, Michael O'Neill, wrote it. I actually interviewed both of them on the first podcast I did with Barbara.
Did you?
Yeah, he wrote a book called The Assassination of Barbara O'Neill.
That's it.
And what happened to them was extraordinary. And, she was arrested and they went to court. They had nothing on her, nothing. And they'd hired a really good barrister. The barrister hadn't shown up. They'd sent an office junior. And they're going, do you know anything about this case? And she was kind of going, well, no, not really, but let's have a look. The hearing went on and she said, well, they've got nothing on her at all. So, you should be fine, because the only thing they had on her were 2 bits of information that she'd, were on her, social media channels. All her lectures have been, or many of her lectures have been recorded. One was when a baby was teething to give them an apple core. Now, obviously, you take the pips out of that, so they're just chewing on the apple core. So she got done for that, and she got done for if a baby is lactose intolerant.
And why do you think it was? Do you think they were targeting her because she spoke about some other things which were a bit radical, wasn't she?
Yes.
So it was just an excuse.
It was an excuse because she had talked about cancer. Now, she hadn't put that out. Somebody on YouTube had quoted her for her remedy.
So
for
it's
cancer.
kind of like an edited misrepresentation. Yeah. So okay.
But you have to understand about cancer, and I do have to say this. I don't know if you're aware that in 1939 there was the Cancer Act was passed. Okay, so that was an act that was passed by government in the UK to say that there was no other treatment available, that a doctor could not give any other treatment apart from cut and burn. So if you look at the timings of this, and this is something I discovered on the Truth About Cancer docuseries. If you look at the timings of that, the British government had invested heavily in chemo, and it wasn't working. But what else happened in 1939? Oh, a world war broke out. What were the concentration camps? They tried gases. Who funded those concentration camps? Funnily enough, quite a lot of money went in there from Big Pharma. So you have to ask why that law came in place. And for a doctor, there is a 10-year prison sentence if they suggest anything else that can get rid of cancer. Now, we all have cancer in our body. It is a perfectly natural thing. It's there for a reason. We've just been told to be very frightened of it. What it is the body giving you a massive slap round the face, going, for fuck's sake, wake up, do something. Your lifestyle is crap. Do something. And all it wants you to do is spend a bit of time on yourself, detoxing. We live in a toxic world. They poison our water. They poison our food. They poison our air. We are being hit from every single direction. And our body needs help. You can't live in this world now without doing some form of detoxing. And, that starts by cleaning up your house. Fabric softener is the biggest carcinogenic chemical in your house. And yet everybody thinks it smells absolutely beautiful, washes their clothes in it, puts it on. So it's touching the skin and you're smelling it. It has fragrances in it. Fragrances include a list of up to 2,000 chemicals. Now, there are, they say, 88,000 chemicals in the world that have been approved. Okay, I think that's what I quoted in my first book, The Natural Wellness Journal. When I revised that book, I came across evidence that there's more likely 250,000 chemicals that are licensed. None of those chemicals have been tested in conjunction with each other. So they all get a tick going, yeah, that chemical's safe. But what happens when you put that chemical with that chemical?
Right.
And that chemical and that chemical.
Right.
And the average woman puts 126 chemicals on their skin and body and hair and makeup before they leave home every morning. Wow. None of them tested with each other. So detox, get all that shit out. I haven't worn, well, I actually stopped wearing perfume before I was ill. I stopped wearing perfume when I was breastfeeding, and I just knew that it wasn't right to wear perfume and breastfeed a child. I just knew that. My gut told me. Wow.
There's a lot, isn't there? There's so much. It's such an expansive area that you've covered over the last few years, or a number of years now, and you're always here, there. You're being asked to speak about things. You've been invited. You've got lots going on. You've got the podcast and everything else. And I know that obviously here today in the studio, our time is ticking away, and it's just unfortunate because we literally, don't have the time in today's one session to cover every single area. And it's just really, I think, what I hear from you often, Philly, is be aware, and you are raising that awareness and your community. Let's be honest, because one voice is great, but many is powerful.
Yeah.
Remind us of because I didn't note it, and forgive me for that. You have a phrase about the doctor. Please,
it's my catchphrase.
It just is, isn't it?
But First of all, I will say to you that, because I say this a lot on my podcast, and I just really want to make this very clear to your audience, that there are two places, if you want to be healthy, there are two places that you need to stay away from at all costs.
Go on.
The first one is a supermarket. There is nothing in there that will nourish your body. Now, you might go, oh, I use that expensive goods supermarket and they have a lot of organic produce. That organic produce is wrapped in plastic. So find your food supply. Okay, find a farm. I have a farm delivery, organic farm delivery every week. I have a little organic farm shop, near me in Oxfordshire. Find your food source. Do not go to a supermarket. And the other place that you need to stay out of is a doctor's surgery. So I believe very strongly that if you want to be healthy, that's the place to go. Not to go. They over test everything. Really healthy people, and they go, because I've got to that age, in my 60s, where I'm forever getting these letters and kits sent through from the doctors going, oh, can you do a poo sample so we can test for this? Let's book in for a mammogram. Well, I'm not having a mammogram. They've been banned in 4 countries in Europe because they are so deadly. 4 countries as preventative medicine, but Switzerland came out this year to actually ban them. It's you don't want that. You don't want to. I now know you don't want a biopsy, because if you have this ball of cancer that's there to go, hello, help me. If you put a needle in that, you're breaking up that ball, and that cancer is spreading around your body.
Wow.
So just take it as read that it's a tumour, and you've got to get rid of it. Don't find out if it's benign or whatever. Just go, okay, lump. Let's get rid of it. Because my line, I believe with all of my heart that the doctor of your future is you.
There you go. There you go. Philly says a lot of things that some of you listeners and viewers are going to go, I'm not buying that. Let me tell you that you may agree or disagree. That's your prerogative. Yeah. But I can say that the skeptic in you should dig a little bit deeper. Because when I discovered Philly's work, and when I went to the Wellness Festival, and when I started to listen to her podcast, there's a big part of me actually that used to go, no, seriously, it can't be. But there's tons and tons of examples of stories. Now look, everything's got its place. And Philly has a strong opinion on where her mindset and place is. All I would say to you is this. I think we've scratched the surface really today in this episode about Philly's story. We've heard a lot about, her own personal pain, and look her up. She bounces around. She looks amazing. She's got full of energy. There's no sign of things that aren't right. So is she right? Is she wrong? Don't know. Make your own opinion. I will say this. If you are ill and you are getting modern medicine, it might help. Dis-ease is dis-ease, correct, Philly?
Well,
and is there something that, have an open mind?
What I would say is dis-ease is exactly that. Everything is emotions held in the body. And, as much as you can use all the diet and nutrition and everything else, until you get to the root cause of the emotion, you cannot completely heal yourself. Mm. And I know it is a minefield out there to get information from. And thank you for, mentioning the podcast. I'm trying to do something. Can I, you mentioned the festival, but there's something else I'm trying to do. Can I talk about it?
Please.
Very quickly.
Have a little plug.
So I believe very strongly that if you want to find other solutions to heal yourself, that we've got to give you somewhere to go. So I've been working with the College of Naturopathic Medicine this year and last year. And this November the 27th, we are doing our 3rd this year Health Hub. So what is a Health Hub? We kind of had it going on at the festival as well.
Yeah, you did.
So it's a day of two halves. You come along to C&M, you spend one half of your day, either morning or afternoon, listening to talks. And we have wonderful speakers. We had Barbara earlier this year. We've had Dr. Jenny Goodman, Dr. Sarah Myhill. We've got Dr. Tina Pearce as one of our speakers this year. And then the other half of your day, we've got workshops going on in the classrooms upstairs. We've got the fantastic Lisa Strabach, who's a phenomenal homeopath. So if you want to know a bit more about homeopathy, go and do a workshop with Lisa. Go and learn how to make your own remedies. If you want to do breath work, go and do a breath work class and learn about that. We've got beautiful Michelle, who's cranial and sacral osteopath.
Wow.
And she came to film my podcast a few weeks ago. And I've had unbelievable tinnitus since my spinal fusion, and it's horrible, anybody that's had tinnitus. And it's one of the things that I've never been able to get rid of with all the diet and nutrition and tapping. That tinnitus was still there. And I mentioned it to her in the podcast. And so when we finished filming, she said, "Do you want me just to work on your head for 10 minutes before I go?" And I went, "I'd love that. Thank you." So I lay down and she held my head and she started working on it for 10 minutes. The end of that 10 minutes, it had gone.
Is it still gone?
It had gone. It's still gone.
Oh my God. Well, there you go. Well, there you go. So
she's going to be at the Health Hub.
So your next Health Hub is November the
27th. So what we are doing here in London at C&M in King's Cross, and what we're doing is we are building the new NHS natural health system. So by all means, go to your doctors and take your medications. But if there's any part of you that just goes, can I find something else? Or I just want to learn about something else. We've got the workshops, we've got the talks, we've got 13 practitioner rooms.
Wow.
So if you want to go and have a little bit of acupuncture, if you want to go and have an energy reading to see what your biofield is like and where your chakras are. And I know that sounds mad, but my God, does it help?
Yep.
My beautiful masser, Nina, who works with tuning forks, she's going to be there.
It's all going to be there.
It's all going to be
there.
And
I love that new version of NHS, National Health Service. You're calling
Health Service.
Natural Health Service.
Natural
there you
Health
go.
Service.
There you go, folks. You heard it here on So What's Your Story. Thank you, Philly, for your time today. Thank you for sharing insights. There is tons more. I know we are time limited, unfortunately. It's been a real pleasure as always. And thank you again for listening, for watching. Hit subscribe, follow us, please. It helps us to keep doing what we do. Love to you all. Bye for now.
Thank you, Ian.